Welcome to the Temple of the Gods. My name is Max. I'm the Temple Magus. I am an initiate of the Qliphothic and Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and I work with the Anunnaki and Egyptian gods and goddesses. My main practice is Kala Chakra Tantra and activation of the rainbow body. So today I'm going to be talking about working with the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are a very ancient, technologically and spiritually advanced race. They even have the capacity to manipulate time and space. These beings have appeared within our civilization, our mythology, our history, our planet for a very long time. They've had a drastic influence on our development as a species. This is one of the reasons mankind is very different from the rest of the sentient life forms on the planet. We're able to articulate ourselves verbally very differently than other creatures. We have various different spiritual, mental, instinctual functions. And we have access to higher dimensions, which was given to us by some of the Anunnaki gods. You may ask, Max, Anunnaki are aliens, they're not gods, they masqueraded as gods. Well, there is a half-truth to that. The Anunnaki, because of how spiritually advanced they are, they're a species that embodied God consciousness on a technological, mental, emotional, physical, and pretty much every level. They are a very advanced species. So we see them as these primordial universal archetypes that took form within this cosmic egg of this universe. And working with the Anunnaki isn't so much like working with spirits. Spirits have a more subtlety to them. It's still amazing to communicate with spirits, but working with the Anunnaki is very different from my experience. Working with the Anunnaki is like working with physical beings that actually exist. While they are spiritually very advanced, and you can work with them pretty much like any other spirit, their gnosis, their ability to tap into magic, their ability to work with you on a biological, subconscious, genetic level is way more enhanced. They have nanotechnologies, they have light technologies, and their spirit bodies, their astral bodies are very large and refined. So for example, when I call the Anunnaki into my meditations, instantly I'll feel like a portal open in my third eye or in my crown, and I'll actually feel their presence. It's very undeniable. And then they'll start, I wouldn't say pulling my hair, but they'll rotate me. They'll rotate my head, they'll rotate my neck, my spine. And I could actually feel like something is pulling and guiding me through the spiraling. And the more you connect with them, the more physical they feel. And the ability they have to manipulate reality from this overview is immense. To them, we're kind of like puppets in a lot of ways. A good analogy could be the way humans see an anthill. The ants aren't very aware of the massive infrastructure humanity has built. The ants are just aware of the grass, of the hill, of the little breadcrumbs they pick up here and there. That's what the ants are aware of. And there's a lot of things the ants don't see about our civilization that coexists within the same zone of nature it's just beyond their sensory capabilities. I would say the same thing goes for the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki have this really interesting ability or feature that it allows them to exist in this higher level of atomic existence. Just the way you could give a giant jelly bean to an anthill and they might start deifying you as a god, as a deity that gives them food. It's kind of the same thing with humans. These are just very extremely advanced beings that want to help humanity. Some of them want to help. There are various Anunnaki races, but the specific ones I'm talking about here are Enki, Inanna, Kingu, and the typical Sumerian Anunnaki beings. And their presence is quite undeniable, and the more you connect with them, you'll be able to kind of tap into that realm as well and become somewhat half Anunnaki, human. You'll become this 12-strand DNA being. So I personally work with Enki. Enki has been a big part of my journey from the start. The Egyptian gods, they're also Anunnaki. I work with Anubis quite a bit. I work with Horus, Osiris, Isis, the mother goddesses. But if we're to look at the traditional Anunnaki, I would say I mainly work with Enki. I work with Inanna. I work with Enlil here and there a bit. He'll come into my meditations too. But these beings are definitely very advanced. And if you want to take your magic to the next level, it's definitely a good place to start. All of the left-hand path and even some right-hand path magicians I've introduced Anunnaki to have been very satisfied with the results. In fact, it's taken their practice up to a whole nother level. They're kind of like these multiversal beings that correspond to the zodiac. So being into Kala Chakra Tantra, being a channel for Kala Chakra Tantra, the Wheel of Time, the zodiac plays a huge role in my work and my work with the Anunnaki, especially when it comes to self-deification. And you can see that in the ancient texts too. Enki gives the knowledge of the gods, or the fire, consciousness, the light of the gods to humanity. And this results in a genetic upleveling of humanity. We become more like them. We start to advance to their level of evolution. And that's one of the reasons Jesus has 12 apostles, 12 disciples. And that's why Jesus is also the Alpha and the Omega. There are 12 zodiac. And the sun, the pole star, is in the center. So, even in Christianity, there is a lot of Anunnaki influence. In fact, a lot of the teachings of Jesus, from what I've gathered from Enki, actually came from Enki. And when Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, they do not know what they do," that's him talking to Enki. And I'm not gonna lie, Enki was pretty pissed about the whole Jesus incident. But the teachings came before Jesus. Jesus was a conduit, an embodiment of the totality of those teachings. And these teachings essentially came from Shakyamuni, Buddha. or Gautama Buddha. And it became a part of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition known as Kalachakra Tantra. And Kalachakra Tantra is in brief summary, is one of the paths on this planet that lead to enlightenment in one lifetime. So it's a way for us to become one with the Father in one lifetime. And the soul gets to complete its 12 cycles of evolution in that one lifetime. I'm going to be diving deeper into that in other videos. But for now, let's just talk about the Anunnaki. So the very cool thing about the Anunnaki's teachings, specifically the things I learned from Enki, is that a lot of the magic and the witchcraft and even the darker aspects of things, you kind of get to see the science behind it. That's what I really like about the way he teaches. He doesn't neglect the spiritual side. There is a vibrant spiritual field where everything's kind of subjective. It's all force. But he has an amazing way of explaining the structure of why and how magic works. And he does also dive into some of the more traditional esoteric concepts as well to like create more of a relatability. And these gods still teach here on this planet. There are astral temples where Enki still teaches disciples or adepts. I just visited the astral temple like probably 2 days ago. And you learn all sorts of things. You learn things about the Egyptians. You learn things about the Aztecs. You learn things about the Chinese. You learn things about all these different traditions, but in reality, it all comes from the same place. And you can see this type of similarity all over the world. You see pyramids in Mexico, in Guatemala. You see pyramids in Antarctica, Egypt, Tibet, and there's also a reoccurring concept of the 12 constellations and these extremely advanced spiritual beings. Lots of history, especially in Hinduism, thousands of years of history and knowledge, very in-depth knowledge, and it's not something you can just make up. It's not. In fact, there's a Shiva Linga in Hawaii that's 2 million years old. Allegedly 2 million, at least. And that alone says that these beings have had influence on this planet for a very long time. And if you ask me, one of the reasons there is this mass awakening going on the planet, you know, there's a lot of troubles in the political, economic fronts. There's a lot of dark forces, dark agendas being exposed during this time. Humanity is more aware than ever before. And that is an amazing development in such a short time. And that's because the return of the Anunnaki has been expedited. Meaning they decide to come back early. These beings occasionally visit humanity. And they've come back once again. And through their return, there will be souls. There have been souls. Priests, knights, magicians that work with them in their past lives, returning to now anchor the will of the gods. So there's this concept of the return of the Jedi. And, you know, the Anunnaki trained the Jedi, especially Enki or Osiris. They trained the Jedi. They were the ones that started the Jedi. And there is this uprooting of this Sith energy that's going on. People that have been abusing children, women, nations, the world economy, trying to create instability and fear. Forces of the underworld, whether it be archonic influences, negative alien influences, all these things are being exposed because of the Anunnaki, as well as various other allies. So there is a return going on with the Anunnaki, and connecting with them at this time is much easier than it was before. In fact, you can simply call the Anunnaki with intention. If you have a strong will, imagination, you put your emotion out there and burst a signal out to space, out to them to contact the Anunnaki, they will enter your meditation. They will enter your space. And if not your first meditation, your second meditation, you will start communicating with them. For some people, it will be easier. So for some people, it may not be as easy. Their communication style is a little different. It's a little non-linear because they exist outside of time. So we do have to become like antennas to receive their communication. I work with various different entities. Like I work with the Goetia, I work with the Shem Angels, I work with dragons, and they all have various different communication styles. I can pretty much talk to a dragon no problem. A dragon is probably the easiest entity I can communicate with. Demons also are very easy to communicate with because both dragons and demons have this ability to kind of stimulate the lizard brain. Like they kind of speak to the lower aspect, the lower self. So it's easier for the human self to understand. So it's a little more linear. So it's easier to absorb the information. But I've noticed with the Anunnaki, it can be a little harder, just a tad bit, because they exist in the non-linear realm. So their communication style can be a little non-linear. That's why I've noticed keeping an erect spine or consistently calling them into your meditation and connecting with the heavenly axis. These are all great things that can help you with communicating with them. But over time, as you develop, your communication, you will be able to communicate with them 24/7 regarding anything and everything. They'll be there with you reviewing your life as you're living it. So from their vantage point, we kind of already died. If that makes sense. Because they exist outside of time. So they are a part of our life review as we're living it, and they can help us clear that karma as we live it. So it's a very interesting process. They're very, very interesting beings. But if you ask me, a lot of these spiritual teachings that are currently on our planet, including a lot of the rainbow body teachings and, Babylonian, Sumerian, Egyptian, Mayan, Aztec, Norse, Chinese, Taoist, all these different traditions, Anunnaki. It's all Anunnaki. So that's why my teaching style isn't really based on a tradition. The closest thing I could say is Kalachakra Tantra, but even that it's still a little fragmented because all these teachings around the world kind of make up the whole picture, if you ask me. I will be giving references to different traditions and different pieces of information across these traditions, but overall, I wouldn't say the Anunnaki belong to a specific tradition at all. So what do they deal in? Why are they here? How can they help you? Well, it's very simple. The Anunnaki are here to help us see ourselves and the planetary consciousness and the universal consciousness as it is from the highest point of view, so that we can create heaven on earth. And with that, there is an aspect of self-deification that comes into place. we can see this type of deification or godhood in the Kemetic mysteries. It's known as Osirification. We can see the same prophecy, if you will, in the Incas, called the prophecy of Pachacuti, which is the angelic man, the luminous man. We can see the same thing in terms of the rainbow body. We could see it in terms of Hercules completing the 12 labors to become immortal. We can see it across various different traditions. And that is essentially the goal. It is to become an immortal, whether you like to call it Greek immortal or Taoist immortal or whatever immortals there are. But it is essentially transcending the physical self into that rainbow body, gaining full control over your atomic nature so that you become more like a holographic being. So when we merge these bodies, the physical, the astral, and the bliss body, we naturally start becoming God consciousness embodied. And that's why Jesus was able to heal people's eyes and walk on water and all these things, because he tapped into the simulation as a fully awakened atomic hologram. It is a arduous process. It is not an easy process becoming a human god. There is an aspect of healing the inner child that comes into play. Astral time travel, going back into your past memories, reliving them, healing them. And with that, your future selves come into your present self as well. So you do kind of start becoming a little outside of time. It's like you coexist in the higher planes, but also on this plane at the same time. And the real power really comes in your ability to draw down that non-linear force, that 12 spiral force the Druids talk about, Celts talk about, the zodiac force, which is the force of magic that allows you to manipulate time and space. And that's where we actually get a lot of this Harry Potter Jedi type magic. If you're used to playing with candles and incense and sigils, there's nothing wrong with that. I still use them myself. But with the Anunnaki, as well as a lot of their allies, like the dragons, there is this encouragement to not use tools, because we want to become fully self-sufficient in our energy. Like, you want to become so powerful that your energy is literally creating glitches in the matrix. Like, it's bending space. It's literally adding like colors to your aura. You're literally glowing like a glow stick. And obviously these things can all be scientifically explained. It's just the scientific community will never get into it because it's science fiction. But as you work with the Anunnaki, you'll see that shrinking existence down to human size will quickly fade away. And you'll see the power of these beings. So with that said, that's all I have to say about the Anunnaki. I personally don't have any sigils for the Anunnaki. However, I do have a acquainted magician. His name is Enoch Petrucelli, and Enoch channels the sigils of the Anunnaki. And you may also request from him a Anunnaki or any other spirit that you want a sigil or chant of, to connect with the Anunnaki, if that is how you wish to connect with them. However, you can still call them into your meditations and connect with them that way as well. If you like this video and you enjoy this Anunnaki content and want to see more of it, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time.